Back, Carl Phillips, Vince Gold here with you. Kristian Winfield going to join us here from the New York Daily News. Kyrie Irving, of course, opted into the final year of his contract worth well over $35 million with the Brooklyn Nets. You know, he called it a brave act or something like that, like a brave act. He called himself daring to be different. Kristian Winfield from the New York Daily News joined us. Kristian, also a couple days ago before that, had the news that Kyrie received permission from the Brooklyn Nets to go out and seek a sign and trade. So, Kristian, as we start with you, how does Kyrie walk into that building, even as a part-time employee? How does he walk back into that building after saying, you know what, I want to get out and find somebody else to dance with. I got to come back and dance with y'all sorry asses.
You know, he's got to walk back into the building humbly. You know, like this was a situation that he brought on himself, that he brought onto the Nets. And the Nets called this bluff. At the end of the day, they said, hey, if you've got other offers on the table, go explore. And if not, just come back here and run it back and prove that you earned, that you deserve that long-term extension. And I mean, look, the numbers speak for themselves. 103 games over the first 3 seasons in the NBA with the Nets. I mean, the talent obviously speaks for itself. We consider him one of the most skilled players of all time. But is he going to do what it takes to be with his teammates for a full slate of games in a season? That's what it's going to take. And that's how Kyrie's going to have to approach this season. He's going to have to approach it humbly, walking back into those doors. Remember, the Nets can still trade him. Even if it wasn't a sign and trade. So he's got to come in there. He's got to put in the work. We know he puts in the work behind the scenes, but now he's got to put in the work on TV, 82 games in a season, if he's going to win the trust of this front office back.
What you got,
Kristian, what I want to know is the ridiculous amount of drama around this team, around this particular player. And Kevin Durant and this whole marriage from the front office to the Joe Harris thing, like there were just headlines galore covering this team. Is there ever a moment when you are just like, I wish this were the Sacramento Kings? Can I get some rest?
No. Of any team you could have named, please don't have me going to Sacramento. That'd have been terrible. Listen, I say this all the time. I don't ever really have to go looking for the stories. The stories come looking for me, right? Whether it's Ben Simmons, whether it's James Harden, Kyrie, KD, Joe, COVID. I mean, I haven't gotten rest up until even really now with all this offseason stuff. I can't wait to take a vacation. But would I trade it for a different beat? Probably not. I mean, you're building relationships, you're getting to cover. You know, there's something to say about being able to cover players who are competing at the top of the class, right? Like being able to cover Kevin Durant, ask him what goes into being one of the best players of all time, really, and then kind of taking some of those gems and looking at how you can use those gems to improve your career, improve your life, or what things that players are doing that you can do, right? Sometimes you don't get that on other beats, but I'm blessed, and our beat is blessed to be able to cover some of the best of all time. So no, I wouldn't trade it for the world, especially not for the Sacramento Kings.
I figured that would be your answer. And I know this is like a little inside journalism discussion right here, though. But I was just curious to it because I remember when I was at the Daily News, like around 2017, 2018, and I was on that, race, sports, social issues, politics beat.
Sure.
If you remember how the NFL was during that time, like
Sure.
It was something every single day I was writing about. And I was wondering, do you ever feel like with the way the Nets have been all season, the last 2 years, and even this offseason, there's always a story there, but sometimes do you feel like there's not enough time to do all the stories you want, and that sometimes you leave something, on the cutting room floor that you wanted to explore more?
Absolutely, but at the same time, that's the nature of journalism, right? Like if I want to write this profile on the 7th or 8th man off the bench and Kyrie decides, hey, I'm not going to get vaccinated, well, Kyrie not getting vaccinated is more important than anything I could have thought of in the moment, right? So sure, there's probably some stories that I wasn't able to get to last season, some relationships that I wasn't able to make. But on top of that, listen, hopefully we're getting locker room access again this season, and that opens up a whole different set of stories that we weren't able to get to last year. I mean, I think a lot of us took for granted locker room access before the pandemic came, and now that it looks like we might be getting that back this year coming up, I mean, talk about stories. We're going to have our pick of the litter soon. So, yeah, at one end, it's like, okay, when does it ever stop? There's always just like a storm of stories, whether it's good or bad when it comes to this team. But on the other end, I mean, I'm on top of a superstar-driven team that's trying to compete for a championship. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
This is, Kristian, I might be putting you in an unfair position here. I don't think I am. I don't think I am. But do you really believe that this Kyrie Irving Brooklyn Nets saga is over? Because to me, this ended a little too cleanly for me. He opted into the contract. He issued his statement about daring to be different, as if opting into $36 million is daring to be different. Like, you need to explain that to me. But this ain't over, is it?
No, what the Nets essentially did was kick this can down the road one season. You know, at the end of the day, this is kind of just like a one-year contract in a way where now the Nets have a decision to make this time next year. And it puts pressure on both parties. For Kyrie, now you have to perform in a contract year where you have no guarantees. You really don't want to get hurt, because if you suffer any type of significant injury, that obviously impacts your ability to get a contract next year. But for the Nets, you know, if Kyrie comes out, he plays 82 games or whatever is close, 70 plus games, and he looks like that 50, 40, 90 guy that we've seen him be like, okay, well, now you've got to actually give him whatever the deal is, 5 years, 4 years, 200 and something plus million. And if you don't, now you're really back at square one, right? So what the Nets did was they put Kyrie in a position where they said, hey, you have to prove that you deserve this money and these guaranteed years. But at the same time, all they really did was kick the can down the road, because eventually they're going to have to make a decision on this. And they still reserve the right to trade him as well. So there's a lot of moving parts here that are unresolved. And like you said, for something that was so messy, played out in public, it ended kind of cleanly. And I don't think it's over to begin with at all.
It feels like
I'm gonna let you have it. But I think I would not be surprised if he doesn't play another game in a Brooklyn Nets uniform. I'm just let that marinate.
I'm with y'all. Like, it feels like it was too clean. It feels like when you're at the movies and you watch a MCU film and people get up and leave before the post credits, and it's like, nah, it can't just be over. Like, there's got to be one more scene. You just know, like, some more drama has to happen, whether that's from Kyrie, off-season signing, or Joe Harris coming back, or if Ben Simmons something happens again and he can't play. It just feels like that was too simple for this team not to have any more drama until training camp starts.
Oh, for sure. You're already seeing Woj come out reporting, hey, the front office would like for Kevin and Kyrie to come back and start quote unquote team building when the team isn't even already put in place. You know, I think that there was really like a power struggle between Kyrie and the front office right now. And obviously the front office won. But I mean, we're not accustomed to seeing Kyrie being happy when he doesn't come out on the top of things. So I'm really interested to see. I don't know if I would go as far to say as he won't play another game in Brooklyn. He'll never put on a Nets jersey. I think that what if him, Ben Simmons, and Kevin Durant are all healthy on the same roster and you're building that team, I think that is a real championship team. But I mean, at the same time, Kyrie has done himself no favors by the way he's carried himself. We're talking about 2 seasons ago when he took 2 weeks off after the insurrection at the Capitol. We're talking about not getting vaccinated, not doing what it takes to be there with your team. He hasn't really done himself any favors, and now his future is kind of out of his hands.
And last thing for me, Kristian, do we know where Kevin Durant actually sits on this? There was this assumption that if Kyrie wound up finding his way out, that Kevin Durant was going to be soon out of the door. Are you led to believe the same thing, or was that people assuming a cause led to an effect?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? So obviously, yes, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have this really strong relationship, but I think where that came from is if the Nets lose Kyrie and don't get anything back for him, then the Nets not being able to compete for a championship would be ultimately what leads Kevin Durant to leaving. If Kyrie leaves and the Nets are able to get pieces in return that still, or maybe even improve their odds at winning a championship, I don't see Kevin Durant leaving. I think it all boils down to, do the Nets have a chance to truly compete with the Bucks, with the Celtics, with the Heat, and with the guys out west? And if they don't, that's what gets Kevin Durant out the door. But I don't think it's simply cause and effect. There's the middle ground of, okay, well, what do the Nets get if Kyrie ends up leaving? If those pieces they get back can help them win a championship, I don't think KD walks out the door right away.
Kristian Winfield, free agency is less than, or I guess it's a day. It's like 15 hours away, basically, and some of the news is starting to trickle out. And I know you got to get back to work in the phones, man. Appreciate you joining us, man. 3 brothers on national TV. The phone lines will probably be cut right after we leave this.
Appreciate you for having me, guys. Anytime, brothers.
Hey, you do good work, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.